Test, test, test. Okay. Sherry, where'd you go? Terry.
So if it's green, it's on, and if it's not making noise when the light is on, it's because it's muted back here. That's not your fault to figure out.
lights are killing me. There we go. Somebody just pulled in the parking lot. If I could go ahead, thank you, Ellis. Appreciate it. Obviously, it's still not loud enough for some. I don't know how I ever get started. Bonnie, we may have to start playing preludes before everything, just so people know we're about ready to start. I just want to take a moment, number one, and say how grateful I am for Lorna and Bruce and the kitchen committee. They have been doing a fantastic job, more than they probably felt that they would be. And all I can tell you is if you didn't get enough to eat, it's your fault. But they have, I told them, I said, maybe after tonight, maybe one other event in the next couple of weeks, hopefully you all will get a break. And, but they've been doing an outstanding job. We have coming together this evening to consider a recommendation from our Personnel Committee. Hopefully many of you have had the opportunity to meet Kieran and her kids and that sort of thing. And a part of what we wanted to do tonight is just give her the opportunity to come and share her story. I've read a little bit of it. She and I have talked a little bit more about it. To me, it's an interesting story. It's a great story. And so I've asked her to come, and the committee's asked her to come and simply share her story. I've told her when she is finished, we will then have a time of Q&A. She can answer questions, and whenever we run out of questions, then she and the kids can leave. And we will conduct business here that we need to conduct. So, Karen, if you want to come on up, and I'll let you do what you do.
Hello. I just wanted to say thank you for all the yummy food and the kindness and the warm welcome and coming up and introducing yourselves. That's really, you guys are just a very loving church. So it's been a pleasure to be part of that today, and I appreciate it very much. So I will just start by telling you about who I am, where I come from, and my journey with Jesus. And it's definitely a story of him pursuing my heart. So I was raised in a non-Christian family. My dad is from India. We're Punjabi. And he immigrated over here for school and met my mom, who's an American, at the University of Oregon. My mom was raised in the church, but had a lot of wounding in the church, and so really turned her back on it as soon as she left home. And so in my home, and I was raised, it was, I think, growing up, the statistic was Eugene, Oregon, which was in the least churched county of the least church state of the United States. So that's where I grew up. I did not grow up in any sort of church anything. My dad is Sikh, devout Sikh. So if you've seen the turbans, the long beards, that's my dad, and my whole paternal family is religion. So I'm the first Christian, as far as I know, ever in my generations. And my entire paternal family still lives in India. So there's a lot of passion for that country. and for Jesus touching the hearts of those people, because there's a growing movement there, but there's not a lot of practicing Christians in the same way that there is here. So that's a little bit about my dad. My mom, I would really describe her, it's the 70s, and she's moved to the West Coast, and she's a very independent woman, so she's sort of agnostic, spiritual. There's like meditation, and I would consider her a spiritual person. But for both of them, like God, Jesus, those were like bad words in our house. I mean, anything was sort of okay except for that. And it was very much understood that Christians were kind of dangerous, right? They were sort of judgmental. They were, what would I say? There was just a lot of pain, I think, that my mom had from that. And so that's what my sister and I grew up in. And I never really thought differently about it. None of my friends were Christians. Again, least church county in the state. But as I was growing up, I went to high school and I made some Christian friends for the first time as a freshman. And we would have these conversations, and I was coming from what I was raised in, so I had a pretty intense hatred for the Lord, honestly. I mean, I did not like God. I didn't want to know him. I didn't want you to talk to me about him. It was just, the idea of that was offensive to me. So my heart was very, very hard. And I think it's so cool because when I think of myself, like, if God reached me, there's not a soul in the world he can't reach, because my heart was very close to him. And he did a beautiful work to truly open my heart that had nothing to do with me, really. I mean, it had everything to do with his grace. So in high school, I made these friends, and we would get in these conversations. I would back them into some sort of corner of saying, oh, you're going to hell or something, so I could be like, yes, I knew they were judgmental, and now I'm justified, right? So that was sort of how I went through our friendship. And one of these times I walked away, and it just really bothered me that my friend Katie thought I was going to hell. I couldn't get it out of my mind. So I asked myself, like, well, Karen, if you actually don't believe in hell and you actually don't believe in heaven, why do you care? Why does it matter? And I could not, for the next 6 months to 9 months, I could not get that question out of my head. And I guess you could say through that, I sort of became open. We had other conversations that led to me realizing some things. Another thing I told him is, I want to be in hell because that's where all my family and friends are. Like, why would I want to go somewhere where I don't know people and I'd be alone, right? Everybody I know is going there according to your religion. And I remember my very wise friend again said, well, I get that. But the problem is everything good is authored by God, and friendship and family was created by him, so it doesn't exist there. And that scared me, because I thought, well, if that's true, that's a pretty awful way to spend forever, if forever exists. So those conversations got me to a place of openness. My first Christian event was See You at the Flagpole, which is so weird, right? That's not really an evangelical event. But a friend invited me, and I, for some reason, agreed to go. And then I tried to back out of it, and she was like, no, you promised you'd come. So we get there, and we were coming back to school after, we were before Columbine, those of you that are old enough to remember that shooting. My city was actually the first school shooting. We were Thurston, and it was horrible. We're a small community, and it was similar to Columbine, and it rocked our community. It happened the last couple weeks of school, and that's how we all ended. So coming back, there was just this really nervous, uncomfortable, anxious. People didn't know what to expect, and I think for a lot of us, it was the first really big, scary thing that had ever happened in our lives as teenagers. And so as we were praying, it was somber, and there were so many prayers for other people. Not one of them. I went and I thought, okay, these are Christians, right? So they're going to be praying like, God, help me make the football squad, right? I want to get straight A's. Make me popular. Yeah, that's what I expected, right? That's what I've been taught to expect. And I went, and not one of the prayers was like that. There was these 50 kids, some of them from, different groups, holding hands, praying for our school. And the prayers were prayers like, Lord, help me see who's hurting and lost and reach out to them. Help me be a light. Help me not be selfish. Help me not be worried about popularity. Help me be generous. Help me be kind. Help us be an example. And it just totally turned on its head everything that I assumed Christianity was about. So from these high schoolers just praying their simple prayers, I became extremely open to the idea that maybe the God I had been told about wasn't the actual God that these people knew. So I started going to church, went to church for about 4 months, was very confused a lot of the time. Initially, I went because I thought the boys were cute and I liked the music. I'm a singer. Just I'm going to be honest. So that's why I kept going back. And, but eventually, God really got a hold of my heart, and I started to try reading this thing called the Bible, which is very confusing if you have no background and kind of boring when you're 15. And I tried to pray, and then I started actually experiencing what a prayer life was like, and finding that God actually answered. And this was really before I'd even made a commitment to the Lord, but God answered a prayer for me, and I saw it. And after a few months of this, I was at a retreat, and I remember kind of praying about, like, should I be a Christian? And I was walking through an antique shop, and I saw this huge, like, Catholic crucifix. It was an antique one. My first thought was, that is the ugliest thing I've ever seen. And my second thought was, that makes so much sense. That's the only way it could be. And at that moment, I know that I was saved. I didn't pray a prayer. I didn't say something certain. But the Lord, in his just amazingness and the way that he works, changed my heart. And literally, it was like my eyes opened. And I was like, oh my gosh, like that is how it had to be. There's no other way. That's the only thing that makes sense. And honestly, from that day forward, that has been the center of most everything I've done, is really trying to understand what the Lord wants of me, how I'm supposed to serve him, how I'm supposed to walk through hardships, how I'm supposed to serve others. And it's been a challenging journey and a beautiful journey and an adventure. And God really, his grace with me was just unmatched, because I didn't have parents or relatives that believed any of the things that I needed foundationally to be poured into. But the church that I was going to had a huge youth group, and those leaders, I mean, they took me under their wing. We did breakfast Bible studies at the school. They poured into me. They prayed over me. We broke into groups. That youth leader did sleepovers well until we were in college. After we left the youth group, we became lifelong friends. We're still friends on Facebook. We still check in with each other every once in a while. She's about 6 years older than me at the time, which seemed like ancient then, but now it's like we're peers. But yeah, that was the start of a beautiful journey and a very imperfect and messy walk on my end with God, but a lot of just trying to get to know his heart, and what he wanted from me as a 16-year-old, 15-year-old, then 16-year-old, who really didn't have a place to start. So, and through college, again, I was fortunate enough to live in that Christian home. Our church started a Christian house the year before I went into college. So I stayed at that church through college and lived in a Christian house with 39 other girls. And we woke up early to do devotionals, and we served together. And God just laid my steps before me as he drew me near to him. And so I came to Kansas City with my ex-husband, their dad, when I was about 6 months pregnant with that one right there. So we have been here for 17 years. Kansas City's become home. And unfortunately, sadly, I was divorced 3 years ago. It's not what I wanted for my family at all. But I have walked the road with the Lord of learning how to be a single mom in that season, and learning that his grace extends even to those things that we don't want and we don't plan. And it's been a hard learning experience, but it's been a beautiful one. So I hope that when you hear my story, you hear it as something that's just woven through with the grace and protection of the Lord at every step. And, if you as a church feel that I would be the right person, I am excited that this could be the next step of God unfolding what he has for me. I've served as an educator, a vision therapist. I taught at a Christian preschool when my littles were little. I've served as a vision therapist. Then I went back to Midwestern Seminary. I got my master's of clinical counseling, and I've been working as a clinical counselor ever since then. I was fortunate again to be in a Christian practice. And really resigned from that due to burnout, I would say, and the need to take some time to heal and help my family heal from some things that we've been through. And recognizing that helping other people heal in trauma therapy is maybe not ideal for somebody that's in their own healing season. So I just want to share that with you so that you really get an idea authentically of who I am. That there's no secrets or pieces of my life that I'm ashamed of or want to withhold. It's all just part of my story and what God's doing for me. So yes, and the best part of it is I'm blessed to be the mom of Elisa and Luke, who are awesome. And I think one of them is playing football in the parking lot, and one of them is right there. So what questions do you all have for me?
Sherry has a microphone. If you've got a question, just lift your hand. She's young, she can get to you quicker. And just any questions you have for Karen, we want to give you an opportunity to ask those. So anybody, just like I said, raise your hand. Anybody?
So how long did you work with this counseling outfit and that you needed this relief from?
So I was there, so my practicum was a year, and then I was with my counseling group in private practice for about 3 years. And I very much enjoy it and love it, and I'm hoping that there will be in church an aspect of counseling and everything I've learned. I worked with a lot of teenagers, young adults, and kiddos, so I'm hoping that there will be a lot of opportunities to be a safe space for them. Maybe not a counselor per se, but to use some of those skills.
Is this on? Oh, yeah.
I'm going to ask you the same question I asked the one before you. Do you have to take the kids out of state and out of the country to go on mission trips? Can't you find some place in Kansas City and in the state of Missouri so you don't have to do that? For one thing, right now it's dangerous and it's expensive.
Yeah, I think the mission extends to within the walls of this church to a country a half a world away. That is the mission field. Anybody that does not know the Lord is our mission field. And so I would say whether that's Kansas City or God calls us somewhere else as a body, I think that that's largely the decision of, the pastoral staff and the body and what they want to see. But absolutely, I mean, Kansas City has massive, if you've ever been downtown or over to Salvation Army, there are so many places, the mission, where we can do mission work. Yeah, because Kansas City needs us too.
Lucy beat you, I think Sean needs to take this too to tell why we're going out of state for this camp. Oh. She was asking mission trip. Okay, you're up.
He forgot the question. Will you go to the different high schools if they'll let you come in? My daughter just retired from teaching at Oak Park, and she was the sponsor for the Fellowship of Christian Athletes. And yes, that was a small group, but still, that's what that was one of the things she sponsored.
Yeah, and FCA is an awesome organization. We have that on campus, and they did a lot of my discipleship. So yes, I will absolutely be at the high schools as long as they will let me in their doors. I will happily show up and connect in whatever way that we're able to, because that's a huge part of my mission, and your mission as a church is to reach young people, both church and unchurched.
So other than going to youth camp, what's the first thing you would like to see done with the youth group when you get here? And that's a loaded question because I know you don't know what we've been doing. But what are some ideas you have?
So I think my first desire is, before I can answer that question well, so I'll give you an answer, but then also, like, I want to get to know the kids and the families, because I want to know what's important to you guys. I mean, like, I just want to know, like, what is it that you need? What is it that you want? What is it that you feel your kids need to grow as people? And so I think it's hard for me to answer that completely without really knowing the hearts of the people and what they're needing and wanting. But one thing, I really want to see you guys have fun. Like, I want church to just be a fun place. I want to have church be like a safe place, right? Where you can come as you are and you cannot know questions and you cannot be what is supposed to be this example of what we think a Christian is, where we can mess up and we can learn that God has grace for that and we can be real. So I think I know one of the things, the concrete things I want to do is I want to see some really fun activities. And I don't know if those are just like movie nights where we're hanging out, or if it's like everybody going out to coffee or a pizza night or something like that. But I want there to be like really good opportunities for the youth group to connect and just have fun too. So that we get to study the Bible, we get to do all those things, we get to grow as believers. But we also get to know each other and just be social and have like a cool place, hopefully where there's not drama in the way that school, you know, because school is drama when you're in middle school and high school, that's what it is. So hopefully there's not a lot of drama and there's sports or pizza or whatever is fun for them. I don't know if that answers your question or not.
I think my general question would be in terms of, we have a lot of teachers here, and they're having problems in school everywhere in educational process. How do you train someone? How do you teach someone? How do you keep people involved? What would be your process of education? What levels of education would you expect to bring? How do you expect to keep kids interested? How do you think you could integrate our teachers into some of the after curriculum and so forth, et cetera?
Well, I love that there's a lot of teachers because I know that you guys know how to command the tension of a room and you're comfortable with young people, and that is awesome. So in whatever way I could integrate that as help, because this is not like a one-person thing. Like, there is no way this is going to be what it needs to be and what it can be unless there's a lot of support and help from the congregation. So I would like to involve the teachers wherever and whenever they can be involved. And as far as the level of education, what I want to make sure I do is when we've got a youth group, right, we've got anywhere from somebody that's never been to church to has spent their life in church, right? So in any lesson, any teaching that we're doing, there have to be truths that both of those people can take out to be challenged and grow. So there has to be little bite-sized nuggets that make sense, that are basic principles of who God is and what it looks like to follow him. And then there has to be some more substance that's kind of fleshing through that and helping them understand a little bit more about the character of God, or what it looks like to walk with the Lord after you've known him for 12 years, or what it looks like to be ready for adult life and heading into that to walk with God. So my hope would be that there would be a lot of different education levels covered in each sermon so that each kiddo is able to have something that they walk away with.
What has been your opportunity to serve in a church, in youth groups, as a mother with having children in the youth group? And what schools do your children go to?
Okay, so my 8th or 7th grader is at Martin Luther Academy, which is just a little private Christian school not too far from here. And Elisa is homeschooling with me, which she loves. so much. And next year she will go to what she calls a real school. So, so she will be going to Hope Christian Academy, and to finish up her senior year.
Okay.
And so, and then, okay, remind me of the first part of your question, please.
Have you had the opportunity to work in youth groups in a church that you've been a part of, perhaps just as a mother, or?
So, you know, I haven't been real involved with their youth group other than kind of like bringing snacks, doing the mom things that we did with their youth group. And we were part of a church for a long time that had a pretty small evolving youth group. So there was, yeah, maybe I brought snacks a couple times. So to be honest with you, no, that really hasn't been something. When I've served at church, it's been more in the capacity of the younger children.
Okay.
So like pre-K through elementary, in the baby room, and that's sort of been where I found myself. So most of my interaction with teenagers really comes from what I have done since I've gotten my master's with, because I do work with a lot of teenagers in that area. And so with Practicum Beyond, and then having teenagers and having a house full of teenagers, sometimes when friends are over and things like that.
Okay.
She did host and help lead my youth group for like 2 years. So
Would you? I don't even know if I would count that host. I mean,
Yeah.
we hosted at her house, and I had snacks, and we ordered pizza.
well,
That
she
was-
hosted and helped like coordinate events, and she was there when the pastor was sick, and she helped lead a couple times. So she has done it a little bit. So
Thank
She's
you.
very
Thank you for
humble.
the plug. I appreciate it.
We have students who come from several school districts that are not just in Clay County. We have both Clay and Platte County. Would it be very necessary to make sure scheduling works around both calendars?
I think so. I think that what we'll try to do is have opportunities. So Sundays and Wednesday nights are traditionally, you know, like the times where we know people kind of carve out for churches events. And then we get into sports, and that's hard because that's a lot of our, you know, Fridays and Saturdays. So we'll have to be creative about that, I think. But my hope is as we have kids that are coming that are more involved, they can tell us, you know, like when's the best time to do an event? And when's the best time, you know, when would your friends be available so that we could invite them and we could have like a fun night or something like that. So I do think the scheduling can be challenging because you're saying we serve such a large potential group in a large city. So we'll have to be creative with that. And my response to that would be, I would like to see us offer things at different times too. So that we can, if somebody's busy in basketball season, we're regularly offering events, and I don't know if that would be once a month. That's kind of what comes to mind, but of course that's going to be a decision that's more than just me, so that we can have regularly occurring things, so that if kids are busy in one season or another, they can hopefully at least participate in seasons where they're not as busy.
What do you see as some of the biggest challenges to youth groups as a whole? Is it trying to balance their playing sports and coming to church? Or what do you see some of the challenges that kids have today in bringing them into a youth group?
Yeah, I think that for a lot of youth group aged kids, their sports and friends are like the most important thing in their life, right? And that's okay, and that's healthy, right? We want you to have sports and friends. And so I think that, which is sad and understandable for this age, is that the church stuff gets put on the back burner. And so what I would hope to do is really, as I work with those kiddos, give them lots of opportunities to come and make it a place that they want to be. But yeah, I think that schedules, I think even parents' schedules, trying to run kids' places gets hard too, because if you're not a driver, it's hard sometimes to get 3 places in 1 hour. So I do think that busyness is one of our biggest challenges of both kids and parents, and that's going to be something that we have to navigate with just a lot of creativity and grace. I also think that, I do think that for a lot of families, there's some wounding. I know I've had families that have stepped out of church for a while. They've been wounded at church, and so they're not regularly bringing their kids back into church. I think even participating in a live body after COVID is a huge challenge that we have, because people have gotten so used to this virtual community, which is great, but not the same at all, right? Like, we need to be together as people, sharing space and sharing life. And so I do see all of those things right now as being some of the biggest challenges that we'll have to navigate.
I don't know how to ask this. Why are you using private school and homeschooling as opposed to public education?
Okay, so for me, I love, there's a lot of reasons. So I love that the word of the Lord is infused into every piece of my kids' day. Like, they start in prayer, they have a time where they study the Bible. So for like the spiritual and character development piece, I love that for them. It's a bit of a bubble. There's a lot less that they're exposed to when they're younger. There's a lot less filtering that they have to do of some of the kind of negative things that are coming into their environment. And I very much believe, like, children don't have that ability developed well, like adults hopefully do. So for me, to have them in an environment where they're being poured into and prayed for and prayed over and praying with other believers that are their teachers and staff was just really, really important. And God has allowed me to keep them in private school for most of their education. That's always just a year-by-year thing that we go by and see how it goes. In addition, we actually tried public school. We went public school initially with my oldest, and they didn't do spelling anymore. They didn't do work on handwriting as much, and there were some, that math has changed. It's very confusing to me. Math is not the same as it was when I was growing up. I don't know how to help them with it. And so there are a lot of things that I saw that I wanted them to have as building blocks in their education that I saw them not getting at their public school. And then the class size, they go, it's 18 kids or less. So they've got a lot of individual attention. And for her, she really needed a calmer, she was, I think, overwhelmed in her kindergarten experience, and the smaller class sizes and the individualized attention really helped her blossom. So.
I've got a question from somebody watching online right now that just texted me their question. So considering your background is in counseling, why do you feel that you want to work with youth in a particular context?
So I think that's a really good question. So preteens to young adults are just like my favorite people. You guys are preparing to launch into life, and this is where a lot of really big decisions are made. My counseling career actually made me feel really passionately about this age group in a way that I didn't, because I realized as I was working with adults how many of them made this really drastic turn in their teen years, like 15, and started walking down paths that caused them a lot of pain, and started making choices that caused them a lot of pain. And I think a lot of that was they didn't, like a lot of my clients that are just amazing people, but have made some choices that have really hurt them. They didn't have the people around them in that age group to help them learn how to walk a different way. And so if I'm not doing counseling and helping people heal, I want to be part of helping people at a crucial age find support, find a safe environment, find healthy ways to learn how to be an adult. Because I think not only is that how we grow the kingdom and how we make disciples as our young people, but it's also how we just make the world a better place, right? It's a better place to live in, is to help people when they're in those critical places of life, to learn who it is that they want to become, and to help them build their pathway forward to become those things. Any other questions?
I can read that thing. How are you both working with the parents? Because I think a lot of it starts with the parents.
Absolutely. So, and teachers in the room will probably know this, that can be the most challenging part of the job sometimes, right? Because it's a totally different skill set. So I'm very thankful that my former career has, as both a vision therapist, a teacher, and a counselor, have prepared me for those well, because I believe that I'm very good at working with parents. I think that as a parent, I really understand on a deep level what it is to want your child to really understand who the Lord is and how much he loves you and what it looks like to pursue a relationship. So I would view myself and my role as sort of a partner. Honestly, like, I'm here to support your kid, I'm here to support you, I'm here to hopefully love your family well so that your family can honor the Lord and grow stronger together.
I have another question. The position says for youth and children. What are some ideas about growing the children to prepare them for that next step into the youth group?
Yeah, so I think with the kids, their ministry looks so different because of like the developmental ages that they're at and all the like developmental tasks, if you will, like what they can do. So what I would love to see is as they're coming up into the 5th grade and getting ready to come into the youth, and this may not fully answer your question, so let me know if it doesn't, but to always be pouring into them as if because they are a changing individual. And so then as they come up to the youth group, have something that recognizes that sort of rite of passage of a way of moving from childhood into practicing being a young adult, right? And what does that look like to help them transition well? How do their responsibilities change? You know, maybe they are now responsible for bringing their own Bible or whatever it is. So I would want also to understand with the kiddos, the younger ones, what the goals are that have been developed already, what they're learning, and then how to make that a smooth transition as they come into youth and sort of change their role a little bit. Does that answer your question? Okay.
Do you have some ideas of, I believe everything comes from the family, as do you, but our children are almost non-existent. We don't have a lot of little kids anymore. How can we build up not only our youth, but our kids?
Yeah, I think that is going to be a challenge and something that I've already talked with Terry a little bit about how that might work and look. A big thing, I think, is developing a presence in the high schools. You know, developing that's like, we are here as a resource, we are here as a support, just letting them know that we are here. So being that sort of bridge to the high schools and communicating with them well. The biggest way that kids come to church is with their friends at this age. So I would love to see, and I don't know what our budget is, and I don't know what our plans are, but I would love to see, like, hey, you bring a friend, you get put in you get a $5 like Sonic gift card or something for bringing a friend, or whoever brings the most friends this month, you know, you get entered into a raffle to win something. And so just actually some real incentives, some fun little things to bring them in. I would like to have, like I said, some movie pizza fun nights where it's just a fun, safe place that, you know, our kids here can post on Insta, like, this is a fun thing to do, and we're gonna be here doing this, we'd love to have you, you know, maybe we'll have a prize giveaway or something like that. And then promoting it through social media, because that's really their life. I mean, truly. That's, so approaching it as something where we can use social media to put the word out about kid-friendly events and things that we have. Any questions? Any more?
Anybody got a question? Speak now. Karen, I appreciate your sharing, and hopefully you've answered their questions.
Okay.
But I think Sherry and you and the kids, if you all would like to leave and go to the house,
Okay.
I'll be in touch.
Okay.
Okay?
Awesome.
All
Thank
right.
you.
You're
Thank you
welcome.
all.
Shoot. Chuck, if I could get you and two or three other people, we're going to enter into a business session, and I'm going to be able to use some help in doing so. The recommendation of the Personnel Committee is that Karen be hired for the full-time position of Associate Pastor of Children and Students. And that is